Issues regarding the current state of play in the country and of course also the 2027 general election. We just want to also invite you to ask questions. You can fire away your questions on our socials and we'll also make sure that those questions are expressed to her. Martha Karua, good to see you. A hearty welcome to you.
Too.
Thank you very much for graciously consenting to be with us here on TV47 Prime.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Right, so we could just begin from where you had also an event today. You joined, this is Maraga, Chief Justice, the former Emeritus Chief Justice Maraga, at the State of the Nation address that he had at Ufungamano. What were some of the highlights that you picked from that particular State of the Nation address?
Issues of accountability, issues of fighting corruption, issues of youth. You know, there were a raft of issues. Yeah.
He's actually criticized cash handouts and patronage politics, saying they reflect the depth of the country's social and economic decline. So do you really hold with that particular statement?
Yes, and many people do. Even as we discuss the by-election in Ol Kalau right now, and the past by-elections, and the frequent visits, you know, arranged visits of people to State House for cash handouts. Those have been issues that are very live in people's minds because this is the money that could otherwise be giving us critical services that is being abused. So all those issues are pertinent. Yeah. All
right. And there's also a very interesting story that we just ran by our viewers regarding the 45-day retreat of Rigathi Gachagua.
That one I would rather you ask him when you see him. I'm actually, But I'm objecting.
Yes, we object.
I'm objecting to being asked about another candidate when I'm come on set.
No, but actually the context why I'm asking this question is the polarization that we've had in our politics recently. Even you as a politician, sometimes you normally feel spent, that you maybe need to retreat and reflect on how also the affairs and the politicking that you've been doing, or the brand of politics that we've actually been given Kenyans, is it really working or not? And I think this is a good moment to also for him to reflect. You know, in military, they always say that there are 3R strategies, that you retreat sometimes, then you recoup, and then you relaunch. And I know you, now that also you're honestly going out to the PLP party on the Purple Trail, at some point you'll have to retreat, recoup, and then maybe relaunch.
Everybody does it differently.
Yes.
But me time, reflection is very important in everyday life. And that's why even when God made the world, one day became a rest day during the 7-day working week. Yeah.
But maybe just given also the current state of play of our politics, how would you gauge and characterize our brand of politics from your own assessment?
I would say that the Kenya Kwanza administration and its leader, Dr. Ruto, have managed to show that they're totally incapable of steering the nation. Corruption is at an all-time high. This is a grabber's paradise. People are losing land to grabbers, and some courts are not helping either because they're siding with the grabbers. When cases are taken to court, not the complainant is necessarily listened to. The case can be flipped and the victim ends up being the accused. It's a time that the Kenya Kwanza administration is telling the police to shoot to kill. That was Murkomen. And Ruto reinforced it by saying shoot them in the leg. We know Rex Masai was shot in the leg and he died. So reinforcing orders of shoot to kill. I think, and then goonism, goons who are owned and were raised by the state following the Gen Z protests. We saw them walking with the police, working with the police, and now an informer has said that even when they are doing those operations, they are joined by plainclothes officers. So they are protected, in other words, lest they go in and are overpowered. So it's really an all-time low. And then the likes of Chivao, a criminal, you know, a former jailbird in his own country, being given a contract. The very Adani contract that was rejected is now with Chivao. So this is Adani through a different face, because Adani appeared to have a connection with State House, because the way Ruto was defending that contract and his cronies, we have seen Adani with him. So we know he had an interest.
All right.
I surmise that he had an interest.
We'll come to
and now Chivayo is his bosom buddy who walks in and out of State House as though it was his relative's house. Now he's gotten a contract. We are being told contracts are no longer given through the process we know. You pick them at State House when you go for tea.
All right, we'll come to that particular issue momentarily, but let me just put tails on what you mentioned regarding Goonism, because you also, in a recent interview, you said it is a tool of choice for the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Yes.
And they are actually owning the goons.
They own them.
So they are the owners of this particular.
Yeah.
How justifiable is this, right, to actually give this allegation to Kenya Kwanza administration?
It's not an allegation.
Beside the perceptions that we have that, yes, they were seen on TV with, alongside the police. So will we use that perception that we saw as an indication that, yes, these are the tools of the Kenya Kwanza administration and the ownership of Kenya Kwanza
Indeed. This goon came up after the violent reaction to the Gen Z protests, after the repression and killings of the 25th, is when we start seeing goons with brand new minted rungus. They look like they're from the factory. And they are walking alongside police. It's not one media house. It's not two media houses. It's also social media, mainstream media and social media. You see them walking with the police, beating people in full view of the police. This has happened repeatedly. So it is not an allegation. It is something you see, and the circumstantial evidence becomes overwhelming and cannot be interpreted in any other way. Yeah.
Maybe we can also just hark back to 2019, because we had the National Crime Research Center, which came up with their report regarding the rising and the surging of the criminal gangs. So actually, this is the issue, they said, the issue brief on state of organized criminal gangs in Kenya. This is actually a report in 2018. So this is not a new flash of interest that we found with the Goonism that is happening here. They've been there before.
Let's not justify.
No. I just want to read so that we can just get a bit of history.
I am aware Goonism has existed even during the KANU era, Jeshi la Mzee, and gangs in various towns. But this phenomena of Goonism being adopted by the ruling administration as the tool of choice for repression, the resurgence has come after the Gen Z protests. We've seen resurgence, we've seen something new, freshly minted rungus, we've seen goons even lighting up vehicles, in the same old Kalau after the Gen Z protests. And we know government vehicles are guarded by APs. Where were they? Because you don't see them in view. Then a week later, they start charging other people. Why were they not arrested there and then? We have not heard of the disciplining of the people who were guarding government properties on that day in that particular place. So this is something that a resurgence and a pattern that even when the police are throwing tear gas in church, be it Othaya, be it in Nairobi or any other place, there'll also be goons coming in to flush out people. So this is something, a resurgence, and I can say without fear of contradiction that it's William Ruto's administration method of choice of dealing with dissent. So it's not on both political side of a spectrum that you actually raising, yes, because according to this report, it says organized criminal gangs in the country have increased by then from 33, which were banned in 2010, to 326 groups identified by the research in 2019. Yes, that's indicating, yes. 2019 is almost 10 years ago. Yes. This is 2026. Yes. That report is now obsolete for now. I know it's obsolete, for this but reason. I'm just trying to build, a case here on where we are. Because don't use this occasion to apologize for the regime. I have stated clearly that Goonism has been there even before, but this is a resurgent. which appears organized, orchestrated by the regime because of the way we see them moving in the police. It is the first time in the history of this country that we have seen goons working alongside police. And that is why I'm saying, do not try to compare it with 2019. Even when there were Baghdad boys or whatever other boys there were in the country, 42 brothers and all, we've never seen goons openly working with the police. This is the first time in the history of this country. Yeah, this is different. And that is why I'm calling it tool of choice. Not to be confused with lawlessness and criminal activities that occasionally flare up. Not to be confused with rival political camps, orchestrating. These are people escorted by the police, walking alongside police. You can even see them getting into the police vehicles. Yeah.
Okay, so there is the Jukwaa la Usalama from the Ministry of Interior. They've come up with the same reports regarding these criminal gangs. But I want to take you also back to 2009, when you were a Minister of Justice. And you resigned as a Minister for Justice. And you said your position had become unattainable because you felt obstructed in the performance of your duties. Who or what specifically was obstructing you? Because in that particular, let me just ask you first, then I do a follow-up question. Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, carry on.
When we talk about Goonism, one of the reasons also you highlighted was the issue to do with extrajudicial killings during that time. Right? And there was also that Mungiki.
By police.
By police. And so you chose to resign.
Let me tell you, extrajudicial killings in 2009 were by the police, and you remember the late John Michuki ordering a crackdown on Mungiki. And human rights organizations doing a report, actually the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, which detailed that over 500 young men had been killed during a certain period. So I complained. I was not the law enforcer, I was a policy ministry. But if you're pointing out and it's not being acted upon, you are in government and you don't want collective responsibility on things you are flagging out and they are not acted upon. By the way, I was asked these questions in 2009. So how does it help today?
Well, it does help because you actually resigned. So the question will be, looking back, what was the single biggest lesson you learned from the resignation that will also shape your presidency today? Because these are the heat of a moment. If you cannot solve the issue while you are in government, you choose to walk away, then how then do we entrust you that when you're in government and you have the position of power?
As a media person, do not mislead the people. Resigning is not because you can't perform. It is because you feel not I felt not supported by President Kibaki. A minister needs the president's support, especially when the issues are hard. Because I am not the Ministry of Interior. It is the president who can rein in the interior against extrajudicial killing, against becoming a law into themselves. There was the issue of appointment of judges. The president, per the Constitution, ought to have relied on my advice. He's going ahead without it. That's administration of justice and bringing elements in the judiciary who ought not to be there, and it's reform time. Then it comes to the fight against corruption. The government started accommodating corruption. So those were my 3 mandates as a coordinating ministry, because I'm not the EACC. There's the investigator. Prosecutions belong to the Attorney General. I'm not the Attorney General, but I'm there to articulate government policy and point the shortcomings. I felt I had lost support of my president, and because I cannot sanction a fellow minister, I said it's not going to happen under my watch and in my name. And I resigned on principle. That is not the same as not being able to perform. I felt obstructed in the performance of my duties for lack of support. So when we are discussing that subject, as the media, you have a duty to inform the public. And you cannot compare resigning on principle with walking away from work because you're unable to do it.
But
I am capable, and I had done it before. I had advised, and ministers had stepped aside or been forced to step aside to pave way for investigations on corruption. We had caused people to start returning stolen land to avoid prosecution. We were making moves. So you cannot say I was not capable. And by the way, I fought corruption in water as Minister for Water before going to justice, successfully fought corruption, rolled out water sector reforms, got the sector moving without much money, created, devolved units in water, decentralizing, which are there today, but governance has disappeared because they decided not to, enforce issues of governance. So I'm not a person you can say fails to do their duty. Given the opportunity, I do my duty. Yeah.
Minister of Justice, Constitutional Affairs, and also the national cohesion, right?
Yeah. National cohesion for 2 months because the cabinet was appointed in end of February 2008, actually a year, and I resigned in 2009. Yeah.
So that national cohesion, briefly, before we also continue with news a bit, still we have a national cohesion that still exists also in the executive, and we have the national cohesion, we have the NCIC right now, right? And
I didn't know there was a unit in the executive.
Yes, there is still a unit in the, I just wanted to know if
there was none.
This is the unit that you are still running in the ministry.
There was none. We established the National Cohesion Commission, and the law was passed under me.
Okay.
And before I left, we had set up the commission. Or it was about to be set up, I'm not quite correct. But there was no unit.
Cohesion and Integration Commission.
There was no unit.
Okay.
There was no doubling of that commission. Yeah.
There is one that when we have the president addressing the nation, they normally come up with the national values report that is being presented to the president, and then he actually gives it to the chambers, of which also we wanted to know.
Parliament.
To Parliament. What does the president or also Parliament normally do with this particular report on national values? I know maybe this is not really right type of alley, but of course...
No, they are discussed. Yes. Reports tabled in Parliament are supposed to be debated and passed. And when they pass, it means the recommendations should be implemented. But more often than not, Parliament doesn't bother discussing everything laid on the table. And if it finishes either 7 days or 14, I can't remember the exact duration, then they've been accepted. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with the president giving a report, because all the ministries and all the constitutional commissions do give reports.
Yeah, it's not
to the executive.
Yeah, it's not really.
So they can give a report, but would expect that the commission that is employed by the people to give an yearly report on the state of national cohesion and integration. But that's a commission that has outlived its usefulness. It applies the law selectively. There are people who make very, very insightful statements. If they are on the government side, they choose not to hear. And they chase people on one side only. They rarely.
Well, we have a new injection of blood there with the new commissioners and the new chair right now.
Let's wait and see.
By Dr. Kefa Omai, so we have to give him a chance as well.
Let's wait and see.
Yes, but I want to just briefly, just to say, this national values, the question is not about why the president is actually giving or being handed this particular national values report. But what do we normally do with this national values report? Yet we can see, as you mentioned, corruption is so backed in the system. We can see the moral decadence that has really, really gone down the tubes as it is in the country. What do we do with it?
Let's begin with the issues of corruption. We have the Anti-Corruption Commission, a handsomely paid institution, handsomely funded, but an institution that has not been able to live up to its name, and which is also viewed by many as having some very corrupt people who enrich themselves instead of stopping corruption in Kenya. The report that they give us, oh, we have recovered this, if you compare that to their expenditure, they have not proved their worth. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Right, holding court with Martha Karua. We want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, I'll give you a bit of business as we continue with the discussion with the Senior Counsel and the party leader of PLP, Martha Karua. We take a short break.